Would you like to know why semi-trucks in Europe are equipped with such large engines, but not in the United States? Among these are the Volvo D16K with 750 horsepower and 3550 Newton meters, and the Scania V8 with 770 horsepower and 3700 Newton meters. Meanwhile, engines in the US have a maximum horsepower of 605 and a maximum torque of 2780, even though trucks are so much larger. The reason behind European truck engines being larger and more powerful than US engines is several-fold. Having said that, let us explore them. This brings us to horsepower versus Newton meters versus pound per feet. What is the purpose of these big engines on European trucks? Meanwhile, trucks aren't really in need of so much horsepower. However, what could it possibly be? It is the torque that is important to haul massive loads because it determines how fast the engine can accelerate. Generally speaking, torque refers to the rotational force produced by the crankshaft of an engine. As torque is produced, its ability to do work increases, which in Europe is measured in Newton meters, and in the US is measured in pounds per feet. Now, how are trucks in Europe compared to the United States? United States engines are made by 4 major Indian manufacturers, which are Packer, Detroit, Mack, and Cummins. There are also many Caterpillar truck engines driving around in the US, but they completely stopped making them for highways in 2010 due to increased emissions regulations. Meanwhile, Detroit DD15 engines, which are 14.8-liter inline-6 engines with 505 horsepower and 1750 pound-per-feet of torque, are the most popular in the United States. Several truck brands use this on their trucks, including Freightliner and Western Star. Moreover, the most common engines in the US are around 12 to 15 liters with 400 to 550 horsepower. While US truck brands use engines made by separate manufacturers like Packer, Detroit, and others, European truck brands design and manufacture their engines. Now, what about the engines in Europe? The brands such as MAN, DAF, Scania, Volvo, Renault, Iveco, and Mercedes-Benz all offer their versions of truck engines in Europe. There are also shared engine components and technologies between DAF and Volvo, Mack, and Renault. In addition, the Daimler Group, which is also the owner of Mercedes-Benz, and the Traton Group is the owner of MAN and Scania, both of which will be utilizing a shared engine by the end of 2024. There may be fewer differences between the different engines than you might expect, since they share many components and technologies. Furthermore, there are around 440 to 640 horsepower in European engines. Despite this, Volvo and Scania separate themselves from other brands by having massive engines. On Volvo FH models, there is the Volvo D16K engine, which has 750 horsepower and 3550 Newton meters, which is the world's most powerful inline-6 engine. The European market also offers the even larger Scania V8 engine with 770 horsepower and 3700 newtons, the strongest engine produced by any truck manufacturer in the world. Now, regardless of the differences in the engines that Europe and the United States have, why is it that these big engines aren't available in the United States? How does the weight rule in Europe differ from the one in the United States? There are several reasons why US trucks don't have engines with over 600 horsepower. One is that so much power is not necessary. For instance, 80,000 pounds or 36 tons is the maximum weight allowed for a semi-truck on American roads, and is easily accomplished by a 500 horsepower engine with 2,500 Newton meters. Then, the weight rules eliminate the need for larger engines, since smaller engines can perform the same job with fewer newtons and horsepower. Nevertheless, Europe is a bit different, since there are 27 different countries on the continent, which naturally results in different roles. The maximum truck weight in Sweden is usually 60 tons, but in some cases, it can be as high as 90 tons. Meanwhile, 76 tons is the maximum weight in Finland, but 90 tons is being investigated in some cases and even more in other cases. Next, most countries limit their maximum weight to between 40 and 44 tons. In many countries, there are special rules regarding how much weight can be added to vehicles, depending on the type of driving, the number of axles, and the type of vehicle. To pull the heavy load up these hills with such high total weights and steep terrain, a more powerful and bigger engine is needed. When equipped with the Volvo 16.1-liter engine with 750 horsepower and 3550 newtons meters, it may simply be a necessity. With 770 horsepower and 3,700 Newton meters, the 16.4-liter Scania engine does even more. This is because it is simply not possible to haul as much weight with a smaller engine. Now, how about the landscape and infrastructure in Europe versus the United States? There are many differences between the roads and landscapes in Europe and the United States. Despite being a relatively flat country, the United States has a few hills and big climbs around it, though most of the main roads have little incline and are generally wide and long. As opposed to parts of Europe where there are often only minor roads with much larger climbs and where the elevation of the land can vary by hundreds of meters, the situation here is a bit different. With these increases in the high weight of the trucks are put under a great deal of stress, which may require more than 3,000 Newton meters of torque to maintain their performance. In addition, the US is much larger and has a greater area than Europe, making it harder for trucks to travel long distance and carry heavy loads. When it comes to larger and heavier shipments, trains can be a faster and more cost-effective solution, depending on their size and weight. Moreover, in the US, trucks are generally limited to less powerful engines due to weight regulations. And in Europe, it is possible to select bigger and more powerful engines due to the landscape in which the trucks drive. But what about reputation and appearance? There is also the factor of Europe truck drivers caring very much about their truck's reputation and appearance. Besides painting their trucks in unique colors, they modify them a great deal to make them stand out from the rest. The fact that they need a nice-looking and unique truck also means that they need to drive one with a lot of horsepower, even if they won't need it. In addition to V8 enthusiasts, many V8 enthusiasts just enjoy the sound of the Scania V8 engine. In addition to this, America emphasizes the importance of size, particularly when it comes to semi-trucks. Their size determines the amount of load they can tow and how fast they can tow it. Moreover, American semi-trucks sometimes have living spaces inside. With the engine in front of the driver, conventional cabin designs offer more space for sleeping and other amenities. A semi-truck usually has a living area for two reasons. As an example, American semi-trucks drive longer distances, meaning they stop at rest stops overnight. However, many truckers live out of their rigs, which is one of the main reasons for sleeping quarters. Their jobs come as they go along the route, charting their course until they eventually get home again. These drivers are called owner-operators. Moreover, many American trucks spend most of their time on interstates, which have wide lanes and straight roads. Thus, long wheelbase trucks are acceptable and make riding more comfortable. In contrast to European truckers who can only drive 9 hours every 24 hours, they are allowed to drive up to 12 hours every 24 hours. So does every truck in Europe need a massive engine? In Europe, stricter regulations result in different types of trucks. If trucks, as we mentioned a while ago, have massive engines, European semi-trucks are limited to 18.75 meters, or about 61 feet. And in contrast, American trucks are capable of towing multiple trailers simultaneously. To tow more cargo, European trucks must be smaller because of these restrictions. Because American cabs can be 20 feet long, the cargo room is only 40 feet. Further, European trucks are designed with cabs over engines, which enables the cabs themselves to be shorter than 10 feet long. Since European trucks have fewer owner-operators and work fewer hours on the road, there's no need for large sleeping cabins. In addition to shortening the cabin, shorter wheelbases also enhance handling. Then there is an interstate system in Europe, but the roads are more winding and the lanes are narrower. Because of this, it's essential that the trucks can go through narrow city streets, and a cab-over design helps. Due to the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit in Europe, semi-trucks do not require massive engines. So what can you say about this? Let us know in the comments below.